Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So it is a big-time week in a number of ways and areas. A number of ways and areas in which this is a big-time week in sports. And yes, and by the way, Eddie, is today Groundhog Day or is that tomorrow?
I believe that was today, this morning.
Oh, buddy. I think we aired on the opening theme song. It just dawned on me. Is today the 2nd or the 1st of February?
2nd.
Do we know what happened to Punxsutawney Phil? Did he see the shadow? Can we get a breaking news sounder on whether or not he saw his shadow? Because it does. That's right, baby. Groundhog Day.
What is this?
Excuse me?
What is this?
Hey, hang on. We're gonna go ahead. Can you just rewind the tape here real quick? We're gonna start the whole thing over again, Eddie. We're gonna start the whole show over again. Do you have the show open by chance?
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
That's right. Happy Groundhog Day to you. Even though it feels as though we are repeating the same thing over and over.
What am I listening to?
As we play Sonny and Cher's I Got You, Babe. My name is Jake Query. Eddie Garrison is the other voice you hear on this program, not a groundhog, but an ostrich. And yes, it feels like, as you hear with that song, of course, that reminded Bill Murray every single day in the movie Groundhog Day that one day was repeating itself as the next and as the next. In fact, on this Groundhog Day, even though Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow and thus went back for 6 more weeks of winter. That means typically that he is scared and goes back in his hole because winter is going to be here for 6 more weeks. But I think it should be the opposite. But nonetheless, it is not Groundhog Day here because things, in fact, are turning and changing a little bit. They're turning and changing a little bit in virtually every aspect of the sports that we cover. For example, the fact that the Pacers have not one but 2 opportunities over the next 2 nights for you to go out and watch them play, and don't look now, but the team that was on an inevitable course to have one of the top 4 picks in the NBA draft is now suddenly coming together a little bit and winning some games and actually playing pretty well. They got a big one tonight with the Houston Rockets and then Utah tomorrow night. But the Pacers seem to have found some footing here. And this coming on the heels of a weekend where presumably the top 2 picks in the NBA draft were playing against one another at Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, Kansas. And the Pacers brass was there to see it. And as a result, they were not in attendance to see the Pacers put together another pretty impressive win on Saturday night.
Who's to say, Jake? They got a jet. They could have made it back from Fog Allen Fieldhouse in time.
True, but I looked over and they didn't. Unless they might have been in the building, just not in their seats.
Okay, yeah, fair. I guess you would know that.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form damning them for not being there. Don't get me wrong. But there was a fait accompli that this was a team that not was intentionally tanking, but might have been kind of conservative in some of their approaches or lineups because of the benefit that could come from where they are. But they're starting to get pretty solid play. Obviously, Pascal Siakam, it goes without saying. But Aaron Nesmith's now really playing well. Jarris Walker continues to give them a little bit of consistency off the bench. Andrew Nembhard has really developed, I think, a well-rounded game. And so They're away from and getting out of the rhythm of doing the same thing every night, which is hanging around and then losing games. Now, on the college side of things, and by the way, if you go to the field house the next 2 nights to see the Pacers, could it be, Eddie, could it be that it's your last chance to see Ben Mathurin in person as a Pacer?
I would lean towards probably.
Trade deadline is Thursday.
Yes. I lean towards probably.
Unless there's a sign and trade at the end of the year, right?
Yeah. That would have to take, well, yes, that would have to take after the season is complete, yeah.
Correct. But either way, we shall see on that, and we will discuss over the course of today. College basketball. If you were thinking that Purdue was going to stay in its rut that felt like Groundhog Day for the last 3 games of them not playing well and of Fletcher Lawyer staying in that slump he's been in, then I got news for you. They did not see their shadow. There's not going to be 6 more weeks of slump. Fletcher Lawyer was outstanding against Maryland. Purdue found him and found him often, and that's the key. Now, with the Boilermakers, who I think, again, I know I keep saying this, I think when they are playing at a high level and doing what they want to do, I do believe that Purdue is one of, I've said all year long, the best. They are one of the best teams in the country. Top 3 to 5. I really believe that, regardless of what the ranking says. But they have undergone 2 real challenges here. The first that we speculated on last week was whether or not there was some sort of inter-turmoil, inter-strife, chemistry issue based on the inevitability in 2026 of NIL payments and salaries and what guys are getting, and this guy's getting this much and this guy's not, and et cetera. I have no indication that that is the case of what's happening with Purdue or was happening with Purdue, but it can't be ruled out. If you are exploring every possibility, if you play the game Clue, did you ever play the game Clue, Eddie? Great board game.
Love Clue.
Great board game.
It was Plum with the knife and the library.
Okay. How many characters can you think of on Clue?
Isn't Mustard a clue?
Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, right?
Yeah.
Miss Scarlet, is that right?
Uh-huh.
What's
you're
Green?
talking traditional
Correct.
Clue, right?
Yeah, old school Clue. What is it, Mr. Green? Is it just Mr. Green?
Maybe.
What rooms did you have? The study?
Yeah, the study. Good call.
Billiards?
Colonel Mustard, Mrs. Peacock.
Miss Peacock. I forgot about Miss Peacock.
Dr. Orchid.
Excuse me?
Sergeant Gray.
No, those are new characters. I'm talking old school.
Mrs. White.
Okay, Mrs. White, I think, was original.
Madam Rose.
You got the study, the kitchen, the billiards. Was
Captain
there a billiards
Brown.
room? No.
Lady Lavender.
No, you're going with that. That's like some movie. No. But either way, when you are playing Clue,
the hall, the dining room.
You initially are putting together every scenario to try to solve what's going on.
Kitchen.
And with Purdue, you are looking at every scenario to find out what's going on because we are not accustomed to them in that kind of a rut for 3 games. Now, you could also make the argument, okay, they had a tough West Coast trip, and then they had a rivalry game, whatever. But in examining all possibilities, that of the chemistry based on finances can't be ruled out. Not saying that's the case, and certainly it doesn't look like that was the case against Maryland because they looked cohesive. I think the more likely scenario for Purdue is what we discussed last week, and that's this. Purdue is a team whose sum is better than the individual parts. That's no disrespect to the individual parts. It's credit to the way they play as a sum. But there were 2 pistons in the engine that just seemed to occasionally fire a half a millisecond away from when everybody else was in unison. And one of them was Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think still adjusting to the level and the way and the manner and the area in which he's supposed to operate with Oscar Clough on the floor. And the other area was Fletcher Lawyer, where when Fletcher Lawyer's outside shot is not dropping, he is pretty much a one-trick pony. He's not a great defender, and, defenses are still going to pay attention to him, but you lag off of him a little bit. And a sign of great teams, well-coached teams, and great players is when a guy, what do they say about shooters? The only way a shooter gets out of a slump is to keep shooting. And they did a great job of facilitating him, especially when he started knocking stuff down, to let him keep shooting. And when Lawyer shoots that way, and that piston then all of a sudden is working in unison with everything else, that then stretches the defense out a little bit, which also then allows Kaufman-Wren to get his piston back firing with everybody else. And that makes them very, very dangerous. And they did an excellent job of doing exactly that. It also was not Groundhog Day for Indiana, because the Hoosiers, twofold here. Number one, the Indiana of the last several years, when that game against UCLA, and yes, you can certainly nitpick the fact that they had a 7-point lead with inside of a minute to go and had to go into double overtime. You can nitpick that and say, what in the world? The breakdown there, and credit UCLA for their ability to clamp down on Indiana defensively down the stretch. I thought they were really good defensively, especially on the perimeter. But you can nitpick that and bemoan that about Indiana, or you can look at it and say, you know what? The resolve they had to have, the depth they had to reach down to grasp that win and come together. And it all comes down to, yes, Indiana has, they have a roster that was a late developing roster, a late built roster. And you kind of didn't know. I mean, I think you knew Lamar Wilkerson, and they talked about in the broadcast what an important acquisition he was in terms of building that roster, because then they started to get even more and more players. I think he might have been one of the first ones that they got, and he is a high-volume scorer. No doubt about that. But Tucker DeVries continues to struggle, from the shooting standpoint. He is not the volume scorer right now that he was certainly at the beginning of the year, or that he has been over the course of his career. Some question about, just his health and whatever else. Did rebound the ball well. But how about Nick Dorn? Nick Dorn playing 48 minutes and continuing. He's one of those that you now look at it and you go, and I know that he also has not been 100% healthy over the course of the year. But the last couple of games here, this is what Indiana has needed. You knew if it was going to be that Lamar Wilkerson was going to be their primary scorer and Tucker DeVries the Robin, or vice versa, if those were going to be your two guys. And Reed Bailey was one that at times you thought had the ability to be kind of the third fiddle. This is literally found money at the right time for Indiana. Nick Dorn and his streak shooting and hot hand, huge, huge factor for Indiana. And a big reason why they were able to get that win over UCLA. It was funny because I was at the Pacer game and was watching through the overtime and a half, basically. And eventually was like, look, I need to go out to my seat. And I was following it on the Gamecast. So I go and I sit down, and I'm looking at my phone on the Gamecast, and it says 97-97, 0.0, end to OT. And so I say to the people around me, like, oh, they're going to triple overtime. The guy behind me is watching it on his phone on Peacock and goes, no, I must be behind here, because this says that, like, Sicily's going to the free throw line with 0.1 left, or 0.6 or whatever it was. And I'm like, no, he misses the free throw. Well, lo and behold, he hits it. Then my phone updates, and they go on and get the win. But a big win for Indiana. Don Fischer going to join us coming up about 15 minutes from now. It is also not necessarily Groundhog Day, because after the long slog of just going through and having a week with no football and everything else. Here we are, Super Bowl week. It is upon us. And, Eddie, that means two things. Number one, it means that we try to find ways in which the Colts can be related to and or linked to the Super Bowl. And number two, it also means that we get all kinds of emails from marketing companies thinking that we're on Radio Row in San Francisco and wanting to know if we'd like to interview the fourth-string long snapper of the 1979 Green Bay Packers that's now pitching some sort of like inner thigh cream, right? Isn't that pretty much how this works?
Yeah. Do you wish you're on Radio Row out in San Francisco?
Am I being candid here?
Would you rather be in San Francisco or would you rather be here in Indiana?
I do love San Francisco. I love the Bay Area.
By the way, did you know it was supposed to snow overnight? I did not.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. That's why with our Groundhog Day analogy in terms of our bet with the snowbank, you are in real trouble.
We'll see.
No, listen.
We'll see.
Hold on. You look outside in our parking lot right now. For those unfamiliar, here's what happened.
Don't worry.
When we got the Snowmageddon meteorological orgy of 2026, and we came in and they were plowing the parking lot.
What was that? What'd you call it?
Meteorological Snowmageddon. No, Snowmageddon meteorological death storm orgy of 2026.
Oh.
So when we came in the next day, that created the small glacier-type snow mountains that happen when you shove all the snow to the side. And I said to Eddie, okay, what will the date be when there is not a single remnant remaining of snow or ice in the parking lot? I said February 18th. Is that right?
17th.
17th. You took the over. You said, you took the under. You said before then.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that in the next 15 days, the snow piles need to be gone. Now, Eddie, I'd like for you to look out the window, please.
Yeah.
At the glacier bank that we have here. What would you say? What percentage is it versus what it first was?
I would say probably 10% is melted.
Okay. And that's been how long? A week? Is that right?
Yeah, but I don't know if you look, Jake. We got a heat wave coming.
What's the temperature?
Fridays, we're supposed to get up to 37.
Okay,
And
that'll
then
help.
A week from today, 42. And then 44, and then 50 of next week.
I'm here for it. Trust me. I'm wrong on this. But when are we getting snow? Tomorrow, right?
I don't know.
Plus the temperature, I believe Lindsay Monroe said that we're going to have 377 consecutive hours below zero, or below freezing. Below freezing, not zero. So it's going to be wild. But either way, that looks the same out here. But the football calendar does look a little bit different this week because it's Super Bowl week, and we'll get into it a little bit more. I mean, there's not a lot to be said from a local standpoint other than what does this mean for the Colts, or what is the blueprint you look at for the Colts. To me personally, and maybe I'm off base here, folks can correct me if they feel that I'm incorrect in this. But it seems to me, and part of this I understand, you have one team that is the team that everybody in this market was fatigued by 15 years ago. And literally it's like, oh my gosh, it's almost insult. It's almost insult to know that you have the New England Patriots that have been able to this quickly get themselves right back into the Super Bowl, and yet the Colts are still being led by the same person who said the rivalry's back on 10 years ago when a Patriots staffer turned down the Colts at the 11th hour, when Andrew Luck was still the quarterback, right? I think Andrew Luck was still the quarterback at that point. I think that's right. But either way, it's difficult. So for that aspect, I understand why a lot of Indianapolis people be like, from the AFC side, I don't want to hear about it. Side, of course, a team that literally is in the furthest corner from Indianapolis in the United States. And I think, and there is a little bit of precedent that the Colts can look towards, or inspiration, when it comes to the Seahawks, based on the fact that what are they doing? They are playing with and proving that if you get the right pieces all the way around, that you don't need Patrick Mahomes. You just need quarterback competency, and you can be right there. And yes, that is encouraging somewhat for the Colts, because if they're able to get that for next year, do you feel they have enough pieces around and that Daniel Jones can be a piece that kind of puts you over the top? I would think yes, except for then the question becomes, and Eddie, I will ask you this, do you believe the complementary pieces of the Colts are on par with that complementary staff of the Seattle Seahawks?
No.
As evidenced by the fact that they went there and lost, right?
I don't think the complementary pieces on defense are comparable to Seahawks just yet.
That's hard to argue.
I think the offense, you've kind of got the blueprint because you've got a better running back, I would say, than Seattle.
Seattle's got two of them, though. And there's part of me, Eddie, not to cut you off there.
Yeah.
There's part of me that feels like two running backs that are a 7 out of 10 are better than having a 9 and a 4.
Maybe.
14's better than 13, right?
Maybe. Obviously, the Colts don't have a Jackson Smith and Jigba, but Seattle doesn't have a Tyler Warren, and I'm interested to see what they look like talking about Seattle after this year because of Clint Kubiak. He sounds like he's going to be the Raiders head coach, and hopefully that'll be Fernando Mendoza's head coach come April. It's like, how does Seattle adjust? But that's not any relevant to Sunday's game at all. But
by the way, Maxon Hook of New Pal, I certainly know he signed in October to the Seattle practice squad and is with the Seahawks. And I think John was going to try to get him on his program. The one thing that, and you have to be respectful of this. Yes, it would be very easy for either of the two of us to probably just reach out to Maxon's father or Maxon himself. But when it comes to Super Bowl week, the teams themselves like to have the control. That control is the wrong word. They like to be aware of any media obligation players are doing, which includes practice squad type players. And so therefore, I would want to be respectful of Seattle's protocol as opposed to putting him in a bad position of reaching out directly to him, which would be probably pretty easy to do, and have him on or put him in position where he's doing something that the franchise of which he's on the practice squad would be like, well, wait a minute, you did what? I don't think they'd have a problem with it, but the schedules get pretty buttoned down Super Bowl week. But hopefully we will have him on one of the programs between now and Super Bowl Sunday. And yeah, you always look for a local story. I remember covering Super Bowl 34 between the Rams and the Titans in Atlanta, and there were two guys there from the Sioux Falls, South Dakota station. And I said, oh, Sioux Falls, that's cool. What's the tie-in? And they had a kid from Sioux Falls, like University of Sioux Falls or something, who had been on the practice squad for the Rams that year and did not make it to the Super Bowl, but they still went ahead and covered it. But plenty of Super Bowl talk over the course of the week today as well. There's a ton to get to, but let's go back to what happened over the weekend. Pauley Pavilion, historic venue in Westwood, UCLA and Indiana. Double overtime thriller, really. Great game for Indiana, getting right back on the right side of things. Don Fischer was the man on the call and will join us to talk about that and where Indiana goes from here. We'll do it on the other side on a Groundhog Day Monday edition. Query and Company on the Fan.
It's Monday. It's 12:30. It's Fish. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Big win for Indiana in Pauley Pavilion over UCLA over the weekend. It is tomorrow night against the Trojans of USC. That game, 10 o'clock local time, 7 o'clock, of course, on the West Coast, and can be heard on our sister station, 93 WIBC. Joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, he is the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining us. And Don, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought that game was about to go into a third overtime because I was at the Pacer game and was looking at my phone and following it that way on the Gamecast, and it got a little hiccuped, and I said, oh, it's going to be a triple overtime. And someone close to me said, Don Fischer's going to lose his voice. And I said, I doubt it, man. He's had plenty of two-steps over the last couple of weeks. But let's begin with this. You could look at the end of the regulation and be disappointed in Indiana's lack of ability to close. But I'd rather be the optimist and say that it took a lot of fortitude and strength, especially when UCLA ramped up their defense, to find a way to win that game. That, to me, was the kind of game that you can look towards and say, maybe that springboards you a little bit towards something here. What did you see from your perspective?
Well, the one thing that I saw was, and I think this is what's crucial for this basketball team right now, is a toughness factor. I just think that these guys, first of all, they had three guys that fouled out of the ball game and weren't even available at the end. And they came up with other people. The other guys who got in the ball game stepped up. I thought really played well in that context. Trent Sisley, of course, made a critical free throw at the end. And the correct call was made on the ball that went out of bounds. They said it was going to be Indiana's ball, and everybody went nuts in the building without question. And I understand why they did, because it did look initially like it was touched by an Indiana player. But when you went back and looked at it, the ball changed when somebody from UCLA, I don't even know who the player was, but he flicked it with his finger, and that ball started turning a different way. And that's why they made the judgment that they did, that it was Indiana's ball. Gave Indiana a chance to make the free throw, and then, of course, the opportunity to win the ball game. So I just saw a toughness factor, Jake, that we hadn't really seen in that four-game losing streak that they had. And now all of a sudden here, they've won three in a row. They beat Purdue, obviously, which was huge. Obviously, the win over Rutgers kind of got them started a little bit, got some confidence back on the road, and then they beat Purdue at home, and now they've beaten UCLA on the road, and hopefully they can do the same against USC tomorrow night.
And, one of the guys, Don Fischer, my guest here, the voice of the Hoosiers, Nick Dorn, obviously, has played very well. And, he's a guy that's been there and has hit some shots over the course of the year, but the last three games, and notably the last two, he's become this really big complementary piece along with Lamar Wilkerson. And then you get Reed Bailey and, Tucker DeVries doing some things as well. But let's go back to Nick Dorn. Suddenly this emergence as a secondary scorer, a number two guy, if you will, for Indiana, scoring the basketball and being reliable offensively for them, is that a matter of Darren DeVries finding something in a scheme to get him involved, or is it just kind of a hot hand confidence thing and let's ride it?
Well, they have said all along going into this season that Nick Dorn would end up being one of the key players on this team shooting the basketball. The difference was that he was hurt, and he didn't start playing until I think it was in December, mid-December, that he finally got some playing time and started coming out and getting an opportunity. And, of course, it started slowly, but I think the first shot he ever took for Indiana, he made a three-pointer. So you knew that he had the tools. The question was, could he get back into basketball shape and those kinds of things and start playing the kind of ball that they anticipated that he would bring to the table when they got him in the transfer portal. And he has done that, and he's done it in spades at this point, because he has really come on, starting to play some of the best basketball on this team right now. And he's got a couple of things. He still needs to work on his defense a little bit. He needs to become more of a rebound factor at 6'7", and he's got that physical body. But he's also starting to go to the basket more, too, and because people are, starting to play on him very tough as far as the three-point shot and getting somebody to just kind of face guard him, so to speak. And so he's starting to drive the basketball on top of that. He's a skilled player. He's got the tools, and he's really going to help this team throughout the rest of the season.
Don, it's still to me, and I'm sure it is for you too. And this will probably be the case for another 10 years. But while I think it's cool, it is still surreal to think that there's a conference. I remember when the conference two-step road trip used to be Northwestern Wisconsin, right? You're going on that road trip, and that was the big one. So here you are on the West Coast. I'm assuming, obviously, Indiana has stayed out in the L.A. area after the UCLA game into USC, and that's where we're talking to you.
Right.
What sort of things does the team do? I mean, just in terms of how they manage the time management of being out on the West Coast and the acclimation and the free time and the practice schedule and everything else. Can you kind of let us know how things work out in that regard?
Well, they definitely try to find things for the team to do. Yesterday they went to a movie, and today they're going to have practice. They have a full practice today. Obviously, yesterday was a day after the ball game, which they needed rest. They needed to stay off their feet. They looked at film, but they don't go overboard with it. Darren DeVries is very much in the same camp as Curt Cignetti in regard to less is more. In other words, we're going to go out there, and when we do practice, when we do these things, we're going to do it 100%. And we're going to go as hard as we possibly can. But after a ball game like that, and you had a double overtime performance by this Indiana ball club, they were wore out, and they did have guys that played a ton of minutes in that ball game. They needed some rest. So they're off their feet as much as they can get them off their feet in that context. Today they'll have a full practice. They're going out for a steak dinner this evening, I think, is on the schedule at some point. But the team breakfast isn't even until 10 o'clock this morning, which is another 25 minutes or close to 25 minutes away. So they want these guys to get a lot of rest at this point. Then they'll have a really good practice later this afternoon, and then they'll go and have dinner this evening. So, and there's free time, and I'm sure some of these guys that are taking classes and those kinds of things are dealing with that on this trip as well. But again, I think when you're on a West Coast road trip like this and you've got 5 days that you're spending out here, it gets a little boring, to say the least, for some of these guys. That's why I played golf yesterday.
Nice. There's got to be some good golf out there, right?
I played with an IU alum that graduated in '92, and he got us on Brentwood Country Club, which was really, really cool.
I was going to say, Don, but here's the thing. I have a feeling that you would have found a way to play golf if you were at the Great Alaskan Shootout, right? Isn't that right?
Well, trust me, if I could find a golf course in Alaska,
that's right.
I would definitely play it. There's no doubt.
Hey, trips like this, I've always, and we've talked about this before, Don, in terms of just team cohesiveness. And the reason I bring it up is because, like the football team, for example, this is a roster, and maybe this is true in today's college athletics, but it's a roster that upon their first game was still learning one another. And they were put together kind of last minute, this roster. At what point in the season, maybe it's not even now, maybe it was prior to now, but at what point did you feel like you could really start to see it gelling together where guys understood the tendencies of everybody on the floor with one another?
Well, this is going to sound kind of crazy to you, Jake, but when I went to Puerto Rico with the team this summer, I just wanted to go. I wanted to get to know the coach, the coaching staff, the players, just be around them, to get a feel for them, see what kind of players they were, what kind of people they were. And I as soon as I watched them play basketball under Coach DeVries, I was sure that this was going to be a good basketball team. And they played so hard down there and beat a really good Serbian team. And they beat them twice. And they were behind in both ball games pretty significantly. Came back to win one going away. And the second one, they found a way to win it at the end. I really didn't think I'd seen that. I don't want to say that they didn't play like that early, because they did play well at times early in the season. But I hadn't seen the fight level that I saw in these last 3 ball games. And all of a sudden they're playing like they did in Puerto Rico. And I mentioned that to the coach, and I don't know that he agreed with me necessarily, because they obviously, when they went down there, they hadn't practiced but about a month and had 10 practices leading up to, that trip. And so I don't think they even had a lot of formality in what they were trying to do on the court most of the time, but they still played hard and they played together. And so that team chemistry that they built down there, I saw it early in the season this year, as far as this basketball season is concerned, but I didn't see it in that 4-game losing skid. And all of a sudden it's back. And if they can continue this, I think they're going to have a really good rest of the year. And they're going to compete, and they're going to knock somebody off, another team like Purdue or someone like that. They're going to beat them because they just play that hard and that well together.
By the way, I'm looking here, Don. The Brentwood Country Club in Los Angeles, $200,000 initiation fee and a $30,000 annual fee. Now, in addition to that, there is a Brentwood Country Club in Brentwood, New York, which you can play for $41 a round. So I'll be at the New York version. How's that?
Well, trust me.
And I'll tell people I played Brentwood.
I'm not a golf snob in any way, shape, or form. I've played some of the grungiest golf courses you've ever seen in your life. It doesn't matter to me what the golf course presents. I just love to play.
You know, in all honesty, when you get into, like, you know, the exclusivity, I don't know if you played like Pebble Beach and things like that. This is a dumb question as a novice golfer, but do courses like that become more challenging, or is it just kind of the serenity and the aesthetics of when you get into those beautiful areas? Does that make sense?
Well, I here's the thing. It all depends on your game. Whether you're going to play, it doesn't matter whether you play well or not. It does, because every golfer wants to play well, especially if he goes to one of these really great golf courses. And I've had the honest to good success or blessing to be able to do that many times over a number of really good golf courses in our country. But the fact of the matter is, golf to me is as a game that you're competing against yourself and the golf course. And mostly in my case, it's against myself, because I get hot-headed and all that kind of stuff because I'm not doing as well as I think I should. But from a pure golf perspective, I just like to play, and it doesn't matter where I play or how I go about it. It's just a matter of getting a chance, the opportunity to do so. I fell in love with this game when I turned 40 years old. I was doing, all kinds of charity, celebrity type stuff back in the day, and we did all these tours with Coach Mallory and the football team, and we just played scramble golf all the time, and it ruined me.
Yeah.
It's
the constant pursuit, right? It's the constant pursuit.
Yeah. And so anyway, I'm probably not answering your question the way you'd like me to answer, but I'm just telling you what I feel about the game of golf. It's a very competitive thing at the same time, and it still gives you that opportunity to compete, which is, at my age, that's saying something.
Well, the next opportunity for Indiana to compete will be tomorrow night against USC. You can hear it on our sister station, 93 WIBC, beginning at 10 p.m. Tip-off, local time, 7 o'clock on the West Coast, of course, and Don Fischer will be on the call. We got you 18 minutes till breakfast, Don. Go enjoy the team meal and the rest of the day today, and we'll be listening tomorrow night.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Appreciate it. Don Fischer joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. The closest I have gotten to an exclusive golf course, and the story that I've told before, was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was calling a race it was an endurance race at Laguna Seca, which is just outside of Carmel, California. And when I got done, I was hot and sweaty and grimy and gross, and I had a flight, a red-eye flight. Actually, it was like a 9 p.m. flight out of San Francisco. So I had to drive from Carmel, California, the hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it might be, up to San Francisco. And I thought, okay, if I can just find a gas station to pull over and go in and just change clothes and freshen up, And in California, they don't have like Buc-ee's, right? They don't have big truck stops, whatever. So I'm driving along up whatever road it is, the 1 or whatever, the 101, whatever. And I see an exit for Palo Alto. I thought, Stanford is in Palo Alto, and I think it's a pretty nice area, so I'll bet they'd have a pretty clean, big gas station or something. So I pull off on this road, and I'm driving, and I'm like, when do I get to Palo Alto here? Like, what in the world? And I'm driving up this hill, and finally I come into this parking lot, and I'm like, it's the Palo Alto Hills Golf and Resort Club. Very exclusive. And I'm driving a Nissan Sentra rental car, and I parked it right between like a Lamborghini and a Maserati. True story. grab my bag. I'm wearing slacks and a shirt that says Laguna Seca, whatever. I don't remember what network it was that I was doing it for. And I've got track sludge, as I call it, all over me. And I walked right into the clubhouse, went right into the men's restroom, got a shower, took a steam, used a little mouthwash, sat inside the eucalyptus room for a while, nice big marble bench bathroom, took a shower, used the restroom, was there for about an hour or so. A couple guys asked me how I played. Oh, yeah, I shot great. And 7 was tough today. Boy, the wind was tough. And then got changed and freshened up, looked like $1 million, got in my Nissan Sentra and left. And I shouldn't say this. I have a very posh towel, Eddie, if you ever come to Chateau Laquerie.
I've been to Chateau Laquerie. What are you talking about?
Well, if you ever shower there and you go into the linen closet, you might enjoy the embossed Palo Alto Hills and Resort Golf Club towel.
Although I thought it was Booze Mansion, not Chateau de Query.
It is that too, right? He's very non-selective about whatever towels he'd like to use. You know what I mean? Okay. Again, Super Bowl Sunday coming up on this Sunday, but something did happen pop culturally over the weekend that I wanted to pick the brain of Eddie Garrison, who apparently has never seen Groundhog Day. But we will get to his explanation on something that I'm going to inquire about next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
So I have a theory here. And I mean this with all due respect and understanding with regards to the Grammys last night. So, Eddie, I will allow you. If you were to look, did you watch the Grammys?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to name to you some of the Grammy Award winners, and I want you to tell me how familiar you are with their music on a scale of 1 to 10. You ready?
I'm ready. That was Jelly Roll, by the way, who I just played coming back, Jake, if you didn't catch that.
Okay. Kendrick Lamar.
I'm familiar with Kendrick Lamar.
As am I.
So that's a 10.
Not overly, but I mean, I know of Kendrick Lamar, obviously. Listen, I'm taking a risk here because I'm going to mispronounce some of these names and look really outdated.
Okay.
Bruno Mars.
That's like a 12, right? Yeah.
Do you know that at one time Bruno Mars, I believe this is a true statement. When Bruno Mars had a #1 song on the Billboard charts at the same time that Marcus Mariota, or how do we say that now?
Mariota.
He was the Heisman winner, and Barack Obama was the president, and that was the first time that a state had claim by birthplace of all three of those categories at one time. Hawaii, the first state to do that. I believe that's correct. Rose, am I saying that correctly, or is it Rose?
I think it's Rose.
I think it's Rose, right?
You can tell I'm not familiar with Rose.
Okay.
Or Rose.
Lady Gaga.
Yep.
Obviously. Again, I'm a little embarrassed here. Because I know the artist. I do know the artist because Shannon likes this artist a lot. Billie, is it Eilish or Ella? It's Eilish, right?
Eilish.
Yeah. I'd say like a 5 for me, right?
I'm very familiar with Billie Eilish.
Sabrina Carpenter.
Very familiar with Sabrina Carpenter.
Bad Bunny.
The Super Bowl halftime performer.
Correct. It would be low-hanging fruit and easy for me, and probably even an indictment on myself to sit here and say, like, I'll tell you this music today, I don't understand any of this stuff. Except for this. It is my belief that most people, music becomes the window into a memory, by and large. Part of why you like a great song is because you hear it, and you're like, man, this is a great song. And then you remember singing along to it, or you say to somebody, you remember where we were when we first heard this song? Yeah, we were at Steinberg's wedding. You remember where we were when we first heard this song? Yeah, I remember like driving down in Cleveland and singing along, hanging out in the car with Hillary, whatever, right? And that's what music does. And so I've always believed that while we are consistently sampling things as it comes out, by and large, the meal that we are our comfort food when it comes to music is oftentimes the music that we listen to between the ages of like 14 and 25. Because that's when you're experiencing things and going through things with your friends for the first time, and even with your spouse or whatever it may be for the first time. And so you're always hearkening back to that, and those are the soundtracks with which you have the most familiarity. And for me, admittedly, because I don't have kids and I'm not able to experience through their eyes those experiences, I think there are a lot of people my age that with Bad Bunny or Kendrick Lamar, or for that matter, Kanye or Jay-Z, any of those artists, Justin Timberlake, Justin Bieber, any of those artists, you have an appreciation because you see your kids using that music as their soundtrack. And so therefore you even further appreciate it. Not to say that I don't know and I'm not familiar with the artists and I can't respect their contribution to another generation and era of people that are putting together that soundtrack of their own film, but I'm not as immersed in it. So I'm familiar with the artists, and it used to be that I would watch the Grammys and just think to myself, man, it makes me feel old. But now what it does rather is it makes me feel appreciative, because I love hearing a song from NWA or a song from Guns N' Roses or a song from Slick Rick or a song from Oasis or a song from the Bodines because it reminds me of my coming of age. And so therefore, when I hear those artists that I just mentioned, I have an appreciation for them for their ability to create those same memories for another generation. But I will also admit that it's not near as fun when I'm not sitting there like keeping score with my sister over who's going to win between Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson or Cyndi Lauper and Men at Work or the Thompson Twins and Naked Eyes. Those were fun days for sure. We'll come back. We'll recap what happened over the weekend at the Field House. Eddie Gill going to join us about 15 minutes from now. Query and Company on the Fan. Hey there, Jake Query for Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. 317-353-2141 is the telephone number. I've known Love Heating and Air, the family, the Love family, for my basically entire life. And I know it's a fourth-generation deep family. Chris and John I grew up with, but you know, their great-grandfather started the family-owned business. And when you think about a family-owned business, how do you last that long? Well, you do it with great customer service and treating every customer like family. That's what you get from Love Heating and Air. I've heard firsthand of people saying, you know what? They came into my house, and I thought the furnace needed to be replaced, and they realized it was a small part. They were honest about it. They had integrity. They fixed that part, and then they said, hey, just keep us in mind because we have 24-hour on-call maintenance, and as an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, when you do need that new equipment, we're there for you. Those are the kinds of things you get from the very best. Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. 317-353-2141, over 100 years in Central Indiana.
Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
So what are we going with here? I believe I know this, but go ahead. Enlighten me.
This is Bruno Mars and Rosé.
That's what I thought. Okay. Bruno Mars, again, I am not it would be disingenuous for me to sit here and say like I'm some huge fan of Bruno Mars. But I think with that said, you absolutely have to recognize that he's one of the great performers of his era, right? I mean, just in terms of overall energy and just it factor. He was in the movie Honeymoon in Vegas. Do you ever see Honeymoon in Vegas?
No.
Honeymoon in Vegas, very underappreciated and underrated film. And Nicolas Cage and Sarah Jessica Parker. And when I saw it, I was, 21, 22 when it came out, and I thought Sarah Jessica Parker was super hot. And when I lived in New York City interning at MTV, I lived in a building that was on the same block as her brownstone, and everyone knew that she lived in this brownstone. And one night I was coming back from buying toilet paper in the corner deli. It was like midnight, and I had a 24 rack of like Charmin on my shoulder. And up pulls this car, and out jumps Sarah Jessica Parker. Like 6 months after I had seen the movie and 6 months after I was completely smitten with Sarah Jessica Parker. And I said the smoothest line that anybody's ever said to a female upon initially meeting them. Okay. I said, "Excuse me, Miss Parker?" And she said yes and looked at me, and here we are. There we are on 10th Street in New York City, just on the flanks of Greenwich Village, just off of Fifth Avenue. A budding superstar of an actress and an intern at music television standing with a 24-pack of Charmin on his shoulder. And I said the smoothest line I've ever said. I think Honeymoon in Vegas is the best movie I've ever seen. She's like, "Well, thank you. I enjoyed making the movie." Okay, take care. Super smooth. But in terms of intro music, Eddie, we continue. We should be doing this one all day long, right? Mm-hmm.
What is this?
Are you familiar with the movie Groundhog Day?
Nope. Is this Bob Dylan?
It sounds a little like him. I will grant you that. It does sound a little like him. Here's a question for you. That's Sonny and Cher. I need your honest opinion. Cher in her prime, hot, not hot?
I don't even know what Cher in her prime looks like.
Pretty much the same as Cher at 70. I think there's been some work done there. I personally find her, yes, hot. Is that weird?
You're entitled to your own opinion, Jake.
You have not seen the movie Groundhog Day.
No.
Groundhog Day stars Bill Murray. He is a meteorologist who is assigned in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to go and cover the Groundhog Day, unveiling. And there's like a weird phenomenon where every single day he continues to live the same day over and over again. So every morning he wakes up to the alarm clock of that song. Now, have you ever heard the term like, man, it's like Groundhog Day?
Yep.
Thus, that's where the term comes from. Nice. Like for example, the Chris Ballard era for the Colts is like Groundhog Day, right? Just the same thing over and over and over. And there was, to an extent, for the Pacers this year, this feeling that it was Groundhog Day. And that literally you were like, oh my gosh, after all of the magic of a year ago, after the captivation of my senses from every aspect, all of the energy, the fun, the joyride of that incredible magical run for the Pacers, and getting so close to the mountaintop. They were really at the mountaintop. It was just a matter of which one was going to plant their flag atop it. And after all of that, you come back this season, and with Halliburton out, and Neesmith out for so long, and Nembhard injured for a while, and McConnell going on minute restriction from time to time, and all of it, it felt like Groundhog Day, where it was like, oh my gosh, they were competitive for 3.5 quarters, and then in the end, they fell short. rinse and repeat. And yet, not unlike Indiana that we talked about earlier, and not unlike Purdue, who credit to Fletcher Lawyer, and Braden Smith apparently holding a team meeting, a players-only meeting. And whatever it was that was said, whatever that was figured out, Purdue did figure it out and ramped up the level of play to the point where they, in Maryland, absolutely, took control of that game early because of Fletcher Lawyer. And in Fletcher Lawyer's case, Purdue kind of goes as he goes and as his shot drops. And with that said, you got to give credit to Purdue for figuring out whether they sat down and said, guys, we can't play the way that we're supposed to play unless Fletcher Lawyer is consistently a threat from the outside. Because Trey Kaufman-Renn, for example, is a fabulous low-post player. And he's still kind of learning how to play that spot with Clough, even though he played with Edey, obviously. But a big part of that is you need a defense softened that has to jump out and respect every shooter. And you always respect Fletcher Lawyer and need to guard his shot. But defenses naturally probably lagged off a little bit because he had been in such a slump. And whether it was the players-only meeting that allegedly took place and saying, here's what we're going to do, or whether it was the leadership of Braden Smith as a player saying, this is what we're going to do to get him going, or whether it was just simply, shooters got to shoot. The best way for a shooter to get out of a slump is keep shooting. And that can be a real growing pain because sometimes you never know when it's going to happen. But once a few shots go down and you start to feel that rhythm, then it can come back. And one of the things that is, I think basketball from outside shooting, basketball and golf have this in common. Now, Eddie, you were a baseball player. Did you ever go through a hitting slump?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When you were in a hitting slump, did you find that the biggest challenge in overcoming it was you were constantly thinking about and analyzing your swing as you were doing it as opposed to going muscle memory and just flow?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you start trying to make mechanical changes. You're like, hey, this is what I was doing. Next thing you know, it takes you even further.
Or you're pausing.
away.
You don't realize you're pausing, but in the middle of your swing, you're like, I don't know.
Your hitch, yeah.
And that happens in golf, and it happens in basketball. I don't have a lot of athletic strength in a lot of sports, but basketball is the one sport where I had just kind of a natural feel, and in particular in shooting. And I loved to shoot. And I shot baskets all the time. And I remember one time I was playing pickup ball, and I started thinking about the way I was squaring up and where my elbow was and everything that I had worked for 20 years to make muscle memory instinct. I was now thinking through, and it was causing me to hitch, to use that term. I'm not saying that's what was happening with Fletcher Lawyer, but he's gotten out of that rhythm a little bit. And then once that shot started falling against Maryland, he was back in rhythm where I think it's just natural and he's back in flow, and we'll see if that maintains for Purdue. And in the Pacers standpoint, they, I think, like Indiana, meaning IU, the IU roster, Nick Dorn is starting to get that feel, and that's allowed Indiana now to space things out a little bit, and it's freed up Wilkerson even more, and DeVries, some of the pressure's taken off of him if he's in that slump. And it opens up Reed Bailey on the inside. So much has happened now by having not one but two dynamic shooters for Indiana on the outside. But all of that comes from being a team that had to kind of figure each other out. And the Pacers have become kind of that team because they're now getting significant minutes and in rotation minutes from guys that at the beginning of the year you probably did not expect to be the case. Did anybody really think that there would be stretches late in games where Johnny Furphy's on the floor? And if you look at Johnny Furphy and you're simply looking at his three-point shooting as whether or not he is contributing, then you're under turning over the wrong rocks. Because Johnny Furphy's contribution, first and foremost, I think, comes from defensively. He's a pretty good on-ball and as well wing defender. And then in addition to that, offensively, he does keep the offense flowing a little bit. Not because people are drawing out on him, but he's a pretty good facilitator in keeping the ball moving.
He's a good connector on the offensive end. Like, he doesn't stand around and watch a lot. He's always moving around. He's always hustling. Like, that's the one thing I admire and respect about Johnny Furphy, is that he's always hustling no matter what he's doing. He is sprinting down the floor. He is going hard after the rebound, loose balls, you name it. And you need those type of players.
Speaking of that, did I tell you about, you said good connector before we get to Eddie Gill. Did I tell you about the guy that I just read the news article about that operates a train?
Okay. That's a conductor, not a connector.
Guy over in Eastern Europe.
Okay.
Operates a train.
Okay.
Falls asleep. He has narcolepsy. Falls asleep.
Okay.
Disaster. Train goes off the rails. Several people hurt. Fortunately, no fatality. But in this Eastern European country, that the penalty, because they're very, very, very strict about, transportation and the such.
Yeah.
Gets sentenced to the death penalty. The chair.
Okay.
So he sits down and they say, "What is your last meal?" And he says, "I'll take a banana." So he eats the banana. They pull the lever. Nothing happens. And they said, "Well, weird, but there's a strange bylaw here that if you are not, if the chair malfunctions, you're allowed to walk free." A year later, he's back to his old gig. Narcolepsy hits again. Same thing. Goes in, sits down. This time he wants 2 bananas. Walks away unscathed. Chair doesn't work. You say, holy cow. Dodges the same thing twice. Eventually gets to the point where, if you can believe this, 5 years later comes back, third time. Third thing happens. Exact same thing. Narcolepsy happens again. Again, brought to the chair. Sits down. Says, "I'll take 3 bananas." The guy says, "I got to be honest with you. Based on the past, this banana trick seems to be absolutely keen. I wonder what the secret is." The guy looks at him and says, "Oh, it has nothing to do with the bananas. I'm just a bad conductor." Eddie doesn't even give me a rim shot for that. Not even a drum rim shot for that.
I lost interest after the first banana.
You and the rest of the listening audience, perhaps. Listen, Eddie, I told you over the weekend, 4 people, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. 4 people at the Pacer game mentioned QR to me. And we haven't even gotten into that yet today. QR. You don't want to admit this, but you're going to giggle out loud about that joke later today, and you're going to repeat. People are going to be telling that joke at the dinner table tonight across the city. All across the city, just like the QR. You think I'm kidding? Eddie Gill's a hip guy. Eddie Gill knows hip. He knows cool when he sees it, when he hears it. So he knows, for example, Eddie Gill, you are a father, correct?
That is correct, up to.
And your children are how old? You're a grandfather as well, is that correct?
That is correct. My children are no longer children.
Okay.
They are 25 and 23, and my granddaughter will be 3 in April.
Oh, see, the granddaughter. This is perfect, Eddie. This is what the magic of this radio show is, right? I know that Eddie Gill, being a member, of course, of the FanDuel television sports network covering the Indiana Pacers, we're going to talk about that in a second. But you're always, and you don't need help with this, Eddie, but you're always looking, Eddie Gill, for more ways to be hip, correct? I mean, that we all aspire for that, right?
I mean, just trying to stay in the times.
Okay. So let me tell you this. You're familiar with the craze for the young people of 6'7", right? Everything's 6'7". This goes to LaMelo Ball, 6'7", right?
I'm familiar with it, but I have no idea what it is.
Well, no one does. And that's why I want to let you know this, because I'm letting you in on the ground floor. The new thing to say, and say this to your kids, and they're going to be blown away by your hipness. You say to them, if you're talking about something and they're like, "What are you talking about?" You say, "Don't worry about it. I'm speaking in QR." And then you go, QR. And they're like, "What does that mean?" Well, it means QR code, just like the little things you got to take a picture of on the menu. But if you just say to the kids, I'm speaking in QR, and then you say QR, then that'll take off like wildfire, and you can get on the ground floor on this. Now, see, this is the kind of stuff that I'm coming up with. Now, when I say that, do you not think to yourself, this query is hip? Isn't that what you think to yourself?
You're a trendsetter.
Yes. See, Eddie Garrison? Listen, at least one Eddie G agrees and knows what's going on.
Glad we're wasting time with Eddie's talking about this.
That's right. Okay, Eddie, let's get to the Pacers themselves. I think this group, they're starting to find some rhythm with one another because I think it took a while to kind of figure out just different sets and different lineups that you can go with. But Rick Carlisle seems to have found something here. If you agree with that, what player or players do you feel have elevated a little bit here that allowed them to play well of recent?
Well, I mean, here of late, in terms, guys who have gotten an extended opportunity that would not have otherwise if they had their full complement, I would say it's Jarris Walker. He has definitely elevated in the last month and a half after really struggling early in the season, probably by all accounts. But he's put his game to another level. I mean, we're not necessarily surprised by Pascal or Andrew Nembhard or Aaron Nesmith and their productivity. But in terms of real productivity on both ends of the floor, I would say Jarris Walker. But I guess I'll go back to Andrew Nembhard, and I'm not surprised by it, but he certainly demonstrated his ability to be at his true position at the point and be able to score it and assist it and still be a great defender.
Do you see Jarris Walker, and I'm going to get back to Nembhard as well in a second here, Eddie, but when you think of Jarris Walker and ideally what you'd like to see for him long term, do you see him as more a perimeter wing type guy or as a hybrid that is a low block guy that then, if necessary, can come out onto the wing?
I see him primarily on the wing. I don't necessarily see him playing, many post-up opportunities, although he's taking advantage of smaller guys sometimes. Maybe not in the traditional sense of, hey, we're going to call up set for you to go sit on the box and run a play. But he has the strength and a big, strong body to take advantage of smaller guards, and in some cases, guys that are his size. I think he can do more of that, and he'll continue to do more of that. But I don't necessarily see him doing damage on the box. I do see him as a guy who could guard multiple positions, though. He can, in today's game, he can probably guard 1 through 4 comfortably.
Johnny Furphy has obviously gotten a lot more rotation of late. Is that out of necessity, or is he starting to show some things that are intriguing and where he can be part of a solid rotation moving forward?
Well, I think throughout this entire season, I think it's been to some degree of just trying to find it from Rick Carlisle's standpoint. And just I use the word experiment cautiously and not in any sort of negative way, but he's certainly been trying to experiment with different rotations, including Johnny Furphy and then obviously that center position. But now, I go back to the OKC game. When Jarris Walker went to the lineup, I think Johnny Furphy had been starting maybe 1 or 2 games prior to that. But he's a guy who where he's really thrived for me is his rebounding. I think the rest of his game is still under development, but his rebounding and the work that he puts into the game has really set himself apart and ultimately earned himself more opportunity, more trust with the staff. But in terms of long-term, being a rotational player, starting lineup and all that, I think all that's to be determined. But I do like what he's done from a rebounding standpoint. That's
the voice of Eddie Gill. He's on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, Jake25, the discount code for 25% off at javahouse.com for the Peel and Pour pods. Eddie, let's get back to Andrew Nembhard. You had talked about his ability as a point guard. His mid-range game has always been so good. But what areas do you feel that he has polished and or grown his game this year versus last?
I think there's, just in fairness, we didn't really get a chance to see if he was capable of this from a point guard position. I watched him in college, so in my mind, I always knew he was capable of it because he was a true point guard and a guy who makes plays. But now that he's got more responsibility and expectation, to make those plays, we're seeing it. And I think that's the biggest area of growth externally is his ability to make plays for his teammates. Last couple seasons, when Tyrese was out or even when Tyrese was there, he had some big games from scoring it, but Tyrese being, the primary ball handler, we didn't get a chance to see if Nembhard could do it at this level. But he's had several games where he has very nice double-doubles. His assist numbers have been high. Beyond that, there's just the assist numbers because guys obviously had to make shots for assists to happen. But he's putting guys in position to where they can be effective and make plays from a scoring perspective.
Eddie, you were obviously a point guard. Eddie Gill, my guest. And I would assume in college, I know you played with guys that played in the league in college as well. But did you have moments or games as the point guard where you had to take on a dual role or even slide over into a shooting guard or primary scoring situation?
There were a couple times where that happened. It was never like a key focus for me in terms of scoring it, averaging 16, 17 points a game, that kind of thing. Still got to be a threat, but not we're like, hey, we need you to go get 20, 25, 30 tonight for us to be successful. There was a few times, like once, I want to say it was the Big Sky tournament my junior year. Our leading scorer, Harold Arsenault, who went on in the tournament, the national tournament, to scorch Carolina and Florida. But he was out. He got hurt in the very first game in the Big Sky tournament, and my coach literally came to me and said, "Hey, you're gonna have to do more scoring than what you've been accustomed to doing in the last, throughout this season." So I went out there and was more aggressive to score. So there were times like that, a handful of times, but mostly it was my job to do a little bit of everything.
Is it more difficult for a natural scorer to learn to facilitate, or for a natural facilitator to get scoring opportunity and feel comfortable with it?
I would say, with all things being equal, saying a guy is capable of going to score, right? So if that's just not who you are. You're a guy who's just a high assist number guy, and you're averaging 8-9 points, and that's just what it is. It's probably going to be more difficult for that guy, but I would say all things being equal, it's harder for the natural scorer, a guy who can really score it, to go back and now, hey, I got to figure out ways to get other guys involved. I got to be able to read the game. I got to know who has a hot hand. I need to know what set to call. I need to know what spot to get on the floor to get this guy a layup or a perimeter jump shot if he's a shooter. I would say there's a lot more that goes into creating for other guys than just flat out, hey, I'm going to go score it.
Eddie Gill will be on the call tonight. Television broadcast, Pacers and Rockets. Then, of course, Pacers Jazz, both of them the next two nights at the Field House and on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Eddie, appreciate it as always, and you do not even need to give me credit when you use for the kids QR, and they're going to think you're totally hip.
No, the trendsetter you are. You're getting all props.
Appreciate it, Eddie. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Be safe.
That is Eddie Gill. See, Eddie, he's on board, right?
No.
You don't have to admit it. I even sent you a video. Guy, I was walking up the steps. You know what I did at the game on, I guess it would have been Saturday night. And I love doing this. About probably every fourth or fifth game that we go to, I love going up and just walking the concourse and looking at like the trophy cases and the different concession stands and whatever else, because it reminds me of, when I was a kid, it was such a thrill to go to Pacer games. And then my sophomore year in high school, I was one of the ball boys that would pass out like whatever, magnet night or calendar night or whatever. I was the kid that wore the sweatsuits and walked around passing that out at the game. And it was such a thrill for me. And I loved I loved it. And so I love walking around the arena because it recaptures that for me. But as I was walking up the steps, a guy stepped out into the steps to say to me, "Hey, I got to let you know, my kids are totally on board, QR." And then as I was leaving, a guy yelled at me from afar, "QR." And I said, "Let me videotape you saying that for Eddie." And I did. And you didn't believe me. You thought it was like fake news or something. I'm telling you.
Nope.
Did you say you looked at the forecast and there's snow coming tomorrow?
No.
No, I thought you did. I thought you said there's supposed to be snow sometime this week.
No.
When is it supposed to snow?
I don't see any snow in the forecast.
You don't?
I do not.
What about any precipitation at all?
No. Just clouds, overcast skies. That's all I see.
Okay. Well, you might not notice one of the days there might be windy conditions that are coming. That's because that is the wind that is sweeping QR throughout the city of Indianapolis.
Nope.
I'm a little fatigued today, and when we come back,
Me too.
okay, I'm sure you are. When we come back, we're going to play a favorite game of ours. Eddie gets to determine whether or not I'm completely neurotic. That and your chance to continue to celebrate the Indiana Football National Championship. We'll get to that in about 15.
and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Now, you liked this gal's outfit yesterday, right, Eddie?
I didn't say I like it, Jake. I thought it was very interesting.
Chapel Rome, right?
Yeah.
How would you describe the dress that she wore to the Grammys?
Provocative.
Okay. Drapes. How's that?
Nipply?
Nipply. Good way of saying it. It was basically drapes that were attached in that body part, correct?
I don't know, Jake. Were they?
Okay. Now, Eddie, I know that I've had a lot of people over the course of my life tell me I'm weird. Now, would you list me as weird? Neurotic? If not, that's cool. I mean,
I think I'll have to bring in Mr. Hand.
What are you people? On dope?
okay, that's right. Tonight he has the unique pleasure of squaring our account. So let me run past you why I'm a little bit tired today, and then you can tell me whether or not you find it to be totally neurotic, okay? So a couple of weeks ago, I was sifting the web. I typically find myself during boredom, and perhaps this is not the most advisable thing in the world. I find myself scouring for watches and or like baseball hats, even though I don't wear hats like I used to. I've got a billion of them. So I was looking, and I found a unique Blue Jays hat, Toronto Blue Jays hat. It was a cool-looking hat, and it was not of style I'd seen before. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to buy this. So I bought it. And then a time had passed, and I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I ordered that hat. Maybe it didn't go through or something. Scoured my email, found in my junk email inbox, yep, there it is. There's the confirmation. There's the tracking number, everything else. Tried tracking it, and it went to like a website that, whatever, a spinning hourglass. So it has on there a number, contact us. So I call the number. And when I call the number, this voicemail comes on, and the guy says, hey, this is Phil. Unfortunately, I'm not able to take the call right now, but the fastest way to find out customer inquiries is to text me at this number, and I'll get back to you. So I sent a text, hey, here's my order number. I'm just tracking it. Maybe I missed it. Want to make sure that it shipped out. Immediately, I get a text back that says, my apologies. I'm tied up with something. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Okay. So last night, I thought, oh, you know what? I never heard back from Phil. Not Puxatawny Phil, who had a big day today. So I write back, and I said, hey, I'm circling back on this. So the guy last night, now let me see here if I have the exact time of this. Just as I was getting ready to wind things down and get ready to prep for the day, as you know, which I regularly do.
What?
Okay.
You prep?
So last night at 12:02 a.m., I got a text. I am sending a full refund to you. Unfortunately, the last one that I had a ruined lid. Sorry about the delay, from Phil. So I wrote back, bummer. Thanks for checking. Will you eventually restock this item? To which Phil wrote this back to me. Sadly, I just closed my store today after 11 years. I'm not sure what the future will hold for the business. Also, I'm going through a divorce, and the big corporate competition just got to the point where I could no longer, as a small company, keep up. I don't want to say any names in fear of being sued, but I will not be reordering any as I'm trying to figure out what's next. Sorry, but this has been a very difficult time. That was at 12:20 a.m. And then I got to thinking about this, Eddie. You ever flown on an airplane by yourself?
Yes.
You ever flown on an airplane by yourself and you sit next to somebody, I'm not saying it's me, that becomes like a chatty Cathy and just starts talking, where are you headed? And starts,
No. No.
Okay, well, you probably don't. People don't want to engage. But oftentimes, if you do it enough, you start to talk to somebody and they start telling you all kinds of stuff. And then I realized one time, I think some people just find a comfort in being able to bounce stuff off of somebody that they don't know so that they can get a completely unbiased or objective opinion.
Sure.
And there's a comfort sometimes in talking to a total stranger about things. So I simply wrote back and said, man, I'm sorry to hear about that. You know, I've hope things go well, whatever else. That led to a text exchange back and forth, which concluded at 2:46 in the morning.
Sounds on brand for you.
Hey, man, definitely hit me up if you're going to be in Michigan or in the Detroit area. Would love to check out that race when it comes here. Or if there's anything cool happening that we could take advantage of in your area, let me know. That was after about 50 text messages back and forth just about this guy's 5 years younger than I. He's unfortunately going through divorce, but he's been working out and da-da-da-da-da. And we were just going back and forth about, being our age and hitting the gym and the aches and pains and things like that, and just going through everything that life encounters when you're in your late 40s, early 50s. And by the end of it, I was like, man, I don't know this guy at all, but he just seemed like a good dude. And he's like, you know what? And we talked a little bit about sports, and he's a Pistons fan. He lives in the Detroit area. And about the Pacers and the Pistons and the brawl and whatever else. And it was probably 125 text messages back and forth over the course of 2 hours before finally I'm like, look, man, I got to crash because I got a radio show that I get up and I spend hours preparing for in the morning.
Sure. So which is it 50 or is it like 125? Because you started by saying it was like 50 messages and then you're in by saying it's 125.
50 each. So 100. Probably. I mean, like I said.
That's probably more text than you have I have sent one another in the last 2 months.
Over the course of 2 hours. Hey, Jake, maybe you should give him a try as part of a Why Not franchisee. Not a bad call. Maybe that's his new business venture. I could get him doing Why Not shirts, right?
Sure.
So, Eddie, that said, neurotic or normal? Your thoughts?
What am I voting on?
Is what I just explained to you and what took place and why I'm tired this morning because I was in a text dialogue for 2 hours with some dude I'd never met.
It's not neurotic and it's not normal. It's abnormal. It is Jake.
Okay. Is that a compliment or not a compliment?
It's a verb now. Nope, I'm just Jake.
Okay.
I'm just being Jake Query.
Did you say we're getting a hold of Bob?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I will tell folks about a way that they can get involved with something to hold on to as we do when it comes to the world of sports. The memories and the special nature of it. By the way, I'm looking out in the parking lot right now. Now, I'm not supposed to say names of any coworkers anymore, but I'm watching one of our coworkers trying to park, and it's a 27-point turn. That they started to park, backed out, started to park, backed out, started to park, and now they're backing out again. So what do you think, Eddie? Are they going into this space or not? It's a rather tight parking lot. There's a redirect and a reattempt. The car's backing up. There's one spot as he weighs his fate as to whether or not to try to tempt this and shimmy out of the car or have to park across the street. Now, meanwhile, another coworker is walking to his car. So does that mean that this is going to be a complete abort mission and actually wait for a coworker to leave? So that this is now a 31-point turn into the space. What are you guessing is going to happen here with the end result?
I think this person, Jake, has heard this QR thing, and
you're on board, Eddie. You're on board.
So anti that BS that they're actually trying to park as close as they possibly can next to you, so you can't get in your car.
No, that's not my car though.
Yeah,
but no, it's not. But now I think we've got to back out because I think he realized he can't get out of the car unless he climbs through the trunk. Very tight quarters. Yes, I believe is this an aborted mission? It's car Tetris out in the parking lot. This will be going on when we return, I promise you. And I'll let you know what you can do for IU as well. Hey there, Jake Query. We have an update. A coworker parked the car and then could not get out of said car and is now aborted and retreated for another spot. That never happens, by the way. That sort of second guessing never happens with Chicago's Pizza. Anytime you go to Chicago's Pizza, you are going to pull right in and say, you know what, this is exactly where I want to be, especially when it comes to their lunch buffet every day from 11 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. Traditional pizza, deep dish, Chicago-style pizza, salad bar with all the fixins, everything you want, and the fresh-made hand-rolled breadsticks right there, all for just $13 with a soft drink. $13, tax included, out the door. Fabulous deal at Chicago's Pizza in any of their 18 Central Indiana locations. But, of course, never forget the $25 family meal deal. 2 medium, 1-topping pizzas and the fresh order breadsticks for just $25. Going to please everybody in the house, guaranteed. Whether you're talking about dine-in, whether you're talking about delivery, DoorDash, whatever it might be, Chicago's Pizza is always a great answer. Chicago's Pizza, 18 Central Indiana locations, a story in every slice, great people, great pizza, and great care about the community. ChicagosPizza.com.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This just in, by the way. I told the story earlier about the bad conductor, Eddie. You said you got bored after the second banana?
First banana.
Hey, Jake, the bad conductor with the bananas was not executed because his sentence was overturned on appeal. Okay. See, Eddie, you don't want to admit. You don't want to admit it, right? By the way, the parker, the potential parker out here, finally gave up on the mission, pulled out and left the lot, and since then, 3 parking spots have opened up. So, how about them apples, right? I told you that when it comes to, Indiana is in USC tomorrow night. Hoosiers and Trojans taking place 10 p.m. Our sister station WIBC will have the call. And Indiana, of course, coming off of a double overtime win at UCLA on Saturday evening. And I guess it's possible that during their time down in the West Coast, the basketball team can head over to the Rose Bowl and see the site of one of Indiana's 3 postseason victories that I know IU football fans continue to marvel about and talk about and soak in. And another opportunity, as we talked about earlier last week, for you to commemorate all of that. I'm talking about with Nyco Sports and the commemorative Indiana football and all of it to help out teachers in Central Indiana. And joining us now, our buddy Bob Eibach to talk about exactly that. Bob, the footballs look good. I guess you guys are busy in production right now, correct?
Oh, yeah, we've started to go ahead and get those things produced, Jake, and it's nice to be with you again. And I wanted to get on here today and kind of give your audience kind of a quick update because, as you mentioned, the part of the proceeds from this football goes to the Extra Yard for Teachers to help out school teachers throughout the state of Indiana. We started out with 5,000 of these. We only have a few hundred left, and they're priced at $129.95 each. And in a moment, I'll get that toll-free number and website that the folks listening today can go ahead and order. Got a couple ideas for you. Valentine's Day is coming up. This would be a great item to give that sweetheart one of these special footballs that you're full-sized, or you got graduations right around the corner. So there's two opportunities to maybe use them. And when you go to the website that I'll give out, you'll be able to download a special gift card. So you can instantly, print it out and give it to that loved one for Valentine's Day gift, or, again, maybe use it for a graduation gift. Now, these are priced at $129.95. Only 5,000 will ever be made. They're fully embossed, all the panels on the football, so you won't have anything fading from the sunlight or whatever. On the top panel, we've got the undefeated 16-0 season, and, of course, we have on us the season schedule with the scores, the dates, the opponents of every victory this past year. So when you look back at this football years from now, such a historic season, you'll be able to remember how the Hoosiers went ahead and went undefeated. The second panel has got Indiana football facts, the Indiana logo, and Indiana football history. And then we've got the Big Ten game logo on a portion of one of these panels. And, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say you have that national championship college football playoff championship logo on there, which really makes this a stunning football for when people come into your home and look at it. I guarantee you they'll go, wow, where did you get this? And let them know there's only 5,000 of these will ever be made, so these have become very historic. And I can almost assure you that the quality of the football will reflect the fact that in the future this thing will escalate in price because it's limited edition. Here's how you can go ahead, Jake, and get these. But again, I urge people, do this today because only a couple hundred are left, and once they're gone, they will be gone. Toll-free number to call is 800-345-2868. That's 800-345-2868. If you can't get through the phone lines, do not panic. You can go right to the website, NICOsports.com, NIKCOsports.com, NIKCOsports.com. Get this historic Indiana football that for the college football playoffs, first time ever in school history that they've won the national championship like this. 16-0 season, and these memories will just keep there, running back and forth in your home or an office when you look at this ball for many, many years to come.
And, of course, Bob, people can also get, if they'd like, the acrylic football display case or the IU mahogany football logo display case to display it, whether it be on the desk, whether it be in the office, at home, on the mantle, whatever it might be. And all of this to help out teachers in Central Indiana as part of the Extreme Yard for Teachers program. Bob, I appreciate the time as always, and I know people will look forward. When exactly, do you have an idea when they will actually ship out?
They when we finish up this week, it usually takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. They're all handmade, and with the embossing process, Jake, it takes a little extra time to make these. But when you get it, you'll be much appreciative of getting a football that 10 years from now it'll look brand new. And also, I don't want to overlook this. Extra Yard for Teachers has been around for a number of years, going back to when the college football playoffs inaugurated. And I've worked with them every year. Hundreds of thousands of dollars we've raised for school teachers. And I know NICO Sports, just in the last 6 years, they've raised about $3.4 million. So a big shout out to all your audience, yourself, your station, have helped us achieve that unbelievable goal. And it's just hopefully we can get a few more sold by the rest of this week and raise more money for school teachers. It stays in the state of Indiana.
Bob, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, Jake, be good. Have a great day now.
Appreciate it. Bob Ibeck again with Nikco Sports. Again, the website, NIKCO sports.com is the website. Did you say Chap is in, Eddie, for the other side?
Yes.
We can talk more about the Hall of Fame voting. I'm sure he's not tired of talking about that at all, and get into both Colts free agency and Super Bowl next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Which one we going with here, Eddie?
This is Huntrix from K-Pop Demon Hunters. The song is called Golden.
Have you watched that K-Pop Demon Hunters?
I have.
You have?
Yeah.
Is that a movie or a show?
It's a movie. It's on Netflix. It is arguably, at least right now, the
I know that.
most viewed.
Well, and it's also, is it not one of those, and this is always a gold mine when you can hit this, when you can come up with a movie or a show that appeals to young kids, but also can be, like the parents can follow along and enjoy it, right?
Yep, absolutely. Obviously, Olivia and I have no kids, so we were able to follow it, yeah.
Okay, so if I may, now I had put out an edict, although we're coming up to Grammys, so probably a good call by you. But on this day, I had said, speaking of movies, that each time we come back from break, we should be incorporating this music here, right? Because it's Groundhog Day, right? Now,
It
what we
is.
know is this. Eddie has not seen Shawshank Redemption, has
That is
not
true.
seen Groundhog Day,
Nope.
but has seen K-Pop Demon Hunters.
Yes.
Okay. I did figure out yesterday, Shawshank is available on demand within my cable system. So the party may be on. It's going to change your life. I'm going to guarantee that when you see Shawshank afterwards, you will say, yeah, one of the 10 best movies I've ever
You've
seen.
only been saying this for, 2.5 years? Have we been doing this show together almost?
Okay, well, let's
2
find
years?
out what our next guest thinks. He joins us from CBS 4 and WXIN Fox 59. Chap, you'll be thrilled to know I'm not leading by asking you about the Hall of Fame, but rather asking you if you have seen Shawshank Redemption.
So you're backing into the topic of the day.
That's correct.
Yeah, Shawshank's a great movie. Great. Top 10. Yeah, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
Andy Dufresne. It's a great movie.
No spoilers, but here's the thing. Admit this. It is one of those movies. We all have our handful of these that you're flipping the channels on a rainy Sunday when there's nothing on and you happen to see that it's one of the offerings. You end up landing there, right?
Yeah, and it's like a Few Good Men.
Yep.
If I can watch the last, 35 minutes of A Few Good Men. I've watched Top Gun Maverick a bunch because it's on now. Yeah, and that's pretty, I know I'm pretty shallow, but there's like 5 or 6 of those. Not the whole thing. Well, like if you can watch a 40-Year-Old Virgin, and if you can get the waxing part.
Yeah, that's solid for sure.
But no, it's great. And again, since we're down this rabbit hole, the one with the Wedding Crashers and Owen Wilson.
Oh yeah.
When he's in the bedroom with Lynn Seymour, what's Jane Seymour, and she's doing what she's doing, and he says, "This feels borderline inappropriate." I'm thinking that's one of the all-time great lines in the movies. And you have to watch the scene to understand why it's inappropriate.
Did you ever watch
totally
Owen Wilson? Did you ever see the TV show on it's on Apple, and I don't know when the next season comes out, Stick with Owen Wilson?
No.
It's a good show. It's Owen Wilson is the same character in everything he plays, but I find him likable personally.
Yeah, I agree.
The Fugitive also on my list of must-land movies. All right, chap, let's get to this. A lot has been said about, of course, and I know you've talked with John about it. I had you on last week, and we talked about the Hall of Fame vote and the
you were a day early. I wasn't ready to do what I did, and then all the crap that hit social media, I thought, yeah, this is BS. So I decided to.
Yeah, what was the? Well, I guess what was the? So did you know when I had asked you? And I mean, I totally understand and respect it. That I don't want to come off the wrong way. When I asked you, as probably is my job. In the interview, hey, did you vote for Belichick? And then you, as is also your job, and I think we have a mutual understanding there, you're like, hey, I know you got to ask it, but I'm not going to divulge at that time. Did you know then that you were probably going to write a column divulging your vote?
No, that's why I say I was honest with you that obviously I knew how I voted. I wasn't going to put it out there. But then there was so much junk out there on social media. Some of it was from fellow selectors, where they said, "Well, I voted for him. And then some of the guys took it a step further. I voted for him, and it's embarrassment to the Hall of Fame that he's not in. Well, then you're sort of calling in to account. You're dismissing my ability to vote the way I want to. It would be the old, where there's two ways of doing things, my way and the wrong way. Well, no, wait a minute. That's not the way it works. So no, at the time I didn't, but I just didn't like the way the tsunami was going, because I was getting swept up in it, and so I thought, what the hell? And I hope people who listen and know, and that's not followed my career, that's terrible, but have seen the way I've handled things. I don't like being part of the story. I just don't. There are times you can't avoid it, but in this case, I just couldn't. There was too much BS going on.
For those that didn't see it or did not hear, just in a brief synopsis, the reason that you elected not to vote for Bill Belichick in his first year of eligibility.
Well, when you boil it all down, it's Spygate. And you have to understand that our charge for the Hall of Fame, when you consider people, it's on field. Off field, you can do a lot of stuff, not a count against you, but on field matters. And Spygate impacted on field. Bill Belichick was fined $500,000, and the team was lost a first round draft pick. Well, that's on field stuff, and I've always taken the approach, and this gets me into trouble. But I think if you're a first ballot Hall of Famer, boy, you really need to be kind of a clean guy, a clean resume, a clean bio. Peyton Manning, and I thought Adam Vinatieri last year was a perfect example. I mean, what do you guys want? But Belichick, and I'm not dismissing however many wins, the second most in league history, and the 8 Super Bowls, 6 with the Patriots. I'm not dismissing that at all. But don't just tell me you're erasing Spygate. At least acknowledge that he's got this stain on his resume, and almost every argument I've heard hardly even brings that up. So I do think when a guy has something like that, and I didn't really take Deflategate into that, because that, to me, that's a Brady thing, and we'll deal with that in a year or two. So and again, I'll vote for Bill Belichick next year. I will. I didn't vote for Terrell Owens his first year of eligibility. Remember, there was some stink over that, not to this level. He's a top 5 receiver of all time. There's no two ways about it. But he was suspended 2 or 3 times by his own team. And I just think that sort of keeps you from being that first ballot guy, because it does mean something.
So I'll put it to you this way, chap. Is this a fair statement? Whenever a player is being analyzed to go into the Hall of Fame, if for the sake of discussion, there is one person who is in charge of listing all of the accolades, there is one person who is in charge of listing potential demerits. And it is your opinion that someone who is a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the criteria would be the person who is in charge of listing the demerits has nothing to say.
Well, but it's not like that, because again, if you're presenting this,
I know, I'm saying hypothetically. I mean, that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it comes up, and it comes up with everybody that, well, this guy was suspended for 4 games for PEDs, and this guy was all this. So, no, I see that's the slippery slope I get on. I was looking at our Hall of Fame book that we get, the media guide that we put out, and I don't have the bylaws in front of me, but one of the front pages, mission: honor the greatest of the game, preserve its history, promote its values, and then it's got values: commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and honesty. Well, Spygate sort of goes against a couple of those. So that's why I say it, and I'll catch holy hell for this, and we'll have a Zoom meeting in a couple of weeks to go through this. I'm not the only one. I'm convinced I'm not the only one that believes this. To this point, I'm the only one that's mentioned this. But if you're okay with getting the biggest fine in NFL history for a coach and losing a first-round draft pick, then fine, then vote for him. I chose not to, and that's I can't point to anything else. I'm not going to say, well, without Tom Brady, he was trash. I'm not going to go there because his body of work is just so overwhelming. But there's a but, but, and if you're okay to not have a but or to have it there, and it doesn't matter to you, then fine. But it did bother me. And I did vote for Bob Kraft, which nobody cares about, and I get that. But that's where we get into that, where a lot of us do have a problem with the process, where we've got 5 candidates, 3 seniors, and a coach and a contributor, and you can only vote for 3. And they needed, one guy gets in, the top vote getter gets in, but anyone else has to have 80%, and that's where you cannot get enough votes because people are voting here or there, and you value a senior over a coach or an owner. And that's where we need to address that, which maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. That's above my pay grade. I try to stay within the framework that we're given. So, and then too, what got me irritated is we're not supposed to talk about what went on in the room. It's for free flow of information and criticism and all that. And some anonymous selector told ESPN that, well, there was Deflategate and Bill Pullian was sort of the driving force behind, well, when you have that, you need to wait 1 year. That was wrong. It was Bill Pullian didn't say that. So I guess if you're going to be a source, at least get your facts straight. And Bill and I have had issues before. We get along fine now, but the character assassination he took on social media was over the top and oh, by the way, wrong. So that's, and this isn't Indianapolis, they don't like the Patriots. I voted for Bob Kraft. I stood up and presented Adam Vinatieri. It's not that. I couldn't get past first ballot, Spygate. And again, if you disagree, I understand. But I guess at least honor my right to have that view. And boy, I tell you, if you want to be entertained, when I first posted the story for Fox 59, go and read the timeline. Those comments are really pretty juicy.
Chap, you also, Mike Chappell's my guest. He's on the Java House Peel and Port guest line. You also, after your explanation, either right before or right after, you reposted a statement that was released by the NFL in regards to the Hall of Fame class of 2026. And basically what the statement said was that with being a Hall of Fame voter comes the expectation of adhering to certain things in which every voter is aware there could be penalty for that. What do you believe was the motivation of the NFL of releasing that statement?
That wasn't the NFL. That was the Hall of Fame.
Or the Hall of Fame.
The Hall of Fame, and they are separate. Yeah, whether it was, I would think the selector being the source and saying what he said or she said, we've got female selectors as well. Because other than that, I don't know what there could have been to go against the bylaws. We have every right, in my mind, to include Spygate in that. One guy that I know, the Kansas City guy, voted. He announced that he did not vote for Belichick. He voted for the 3 seniors, and I understand that. A lot of people don't want to see seniors get in, and a lot of us want to see seniors get in. But I really think it was the spreading information where, again, things that are said in that room, they're confidential for a reason. If you're going to be critical of this player, that player, you don't want it to get back to that player that, well, this guy trashed you. You can't, and then it keeps people from being honest. So I really think that's what it is, because I don't know what else it would have been in the voting process. You're not supposed to go and lobby for people. You're not supposed to say, you vote for my guy, I'll vote for your guy. And you're not supposed to have any of these. People talk about these preconceived biases. Everybody's got biases. A lot of the talk is, well, let's get rid of the let's get rid of the media and the writers. Let's get more players, more current Hall of Famers. You think those guys aren't going to bring bias into the room? Are you serious? I mean, of course they are. I would just hope that you're able to weigh things the proper way. And again, somebody on social media, well, it just showed you that people were upset the way Belichick treated the media. Now this is the media's chance for payback. That's BS. I voted for guys who were complete. If that's the case, Warren Sapp would never be in the Hall of Fame because he was not nice to work with for the Tampa Bay media. I'm telling you. So that's all I can think of is they really, really frown on people talking outside school, so to speak. And if there's something else, I don't know. But again, when we have our meeting in a couple of weeks, just to sort of air our grievances, and that will be high on the list of topics. And again, the way it works, again, we voted. It's been 3.5 weeks ago, and as we left our Zoom, I knew who made the modern era from the cut from 10 to 7. I knew who the 7 guys were, so I knew 8 guys didn't make it. I just knew that, but I didn't know who made it from there. I didn't know who made it from the seniors and the coaches. And a week later or whatever, then the Hall of Fame contacts these people and said, you made it, you didn't make it. And then they ask those people to keep it quiet because they want, Thursday night when it's announced to be a surprise. Well, either Bill Belichick or someone close to Bill let it out or got it out there on purpose, whatever. I've heard a few other names, but they really try to keep that private, which is hard to do because it's the old thing. It's the old thing that once you tell a secret, it's not a secret.
Well, Chap, to play devil's advocate here, okay? So if you are to keep it confidential or private, and if you were incredulous over the fact that someone did not when it came to Belichick's vote, then why then come out and say you didn't vote for him?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, in other words, could you not have just said, "Look, that's confidential. I'm not going to explain." And in hindsight, is that what they would have preferred you to do, or is that never discussed?
That I don't know. That's a good question, and we'll have that brought up because we're not. I don't know that we're prohibited from doing it unless they want you to wait until after the show on Thursday. But we had guys, 4 or 5 guys, come out and say, "Well, I voted for him." Because, again, the Hall of Fame and the selectors were catching holy hell over this. How dare you not vote for him? Well, X number of guys said, I voted for him. And then before you know it, it's process elimination. If you get X number of guys who said they voted for him, then you know these guys did not vote for him. I've seen someone from the selectors, they posted in a column that only 11 people did not vote for Belichick. If that's the case, it only takes 11 to keep you out. I find it hard to believe 2 things. One, that only 11 of us didn't, and that this guy, who I trust, and he's really a good guy, that he knows who the 11 are, because the only way to do this, the Hall of Fame's not going to tell you. So the only way to pare it down is to talk to all 50 people and do an old tally on it. So, but we'll see. And even after Thursday, I just don't think officially they're going to come out and say, well, there were 11. The old Belichick 11 is what somebody put on social media. But I tell you, I would personally, I would like to know who else in the room did not vote for him, and why. Just because it's such a flashpoint. But I don't have any expectations that will happen, and there's no reason that the Hall of Fame will say, well, in this instance, we're going to tell you. They're not going to tell us who voted for who. So I'm curious at our meeting, whenever it is in the next month. But I understand people don't like the system. There's parts of it I don't like. But until you come up with a better way of doing it, what you want to pick up 50 fans, 50 players. You want AI to do it and go strictly on stats. I don't know what's better. I know, like with baseball, and they've got a morality clause. That's why the Pete Roses and the Bonds and McGuire's and all those guys.
Right.
Right, aren't in and may never get in.
So, in other words, Robert Kraft's off-field indiscretions are not applicable by rule of the voting because it does not impact or affect on-field performance.
And that's a tricky one, too, because I went back and double-checked about that. He was charged, and then the charges were dismissed. So, does that mean nothing happened? Well, I know something happened. But no, what your point is, yes, that should have nothing to do with it, because it's off the field. And we've got guys in the Hall of Fame, I'm not going to mention names, who've done things that maybe they didn't impact on the field, but they were, whether it was alleged, and again, Kraft wasn't alleged. He was charged with like 2 counts of whatever it was. He was caught in a sting, if I'm not mistaken, on trafficking. And he was wrong place, wrong time at some strip mall in Jupiter, Florida. But he has no record because what's that?
Strip, the key word.
I know. So, but that there were no charges, or they were dismissed. That might be different, but no. Bottom line is that shouldn't matter because it did not impact. It impacted his reputation, certainly, but it didn't have any carryover to the field. Whereas Spygate did, and you could argue Tom Brady did too with Deflategate, because I think the team was fined $1 million, and they lost 2 draft picks. One was the first round draft pick, and he was suspended for 4 games. So I think when you're suspended, you miss time, then that is on field, and then you have to decide what's your level of being okay with something. If you say Spygate didn't rise to the level of keeping Bill Belichick out for 1 year, keep in mind, doggone it, he's going to get in next year. His gold jacket will be just as bright as everybody else's. He just won't be a first ballot guy.
Chap, do you believe Adam Vinatieri and Reggie Wayne will get in this year?
Yeah, that's one I'm not going to go with. That's one I won't go with. I know something you don't know. I know, and I'm not saying. I just that's one thing that I can't say because it's not out. And although I know what's going to happen, I can't. I tell you, we did this a couple of years ago. I can blink twice, and if I blink twice, one's in and the other's not. But I know, but I can't share.
In terms of Reggie Wayne, if he were to not get in this year, he would have how many chances before then he moves into the other column of the senior, like you have with L.C. Greenwood and Roger Craig and Kenny Anderson?
You get 20 years. After your 20th year, you go into senior pool. So he's been there. He's 0 for 6 going into this year. This is his 7th year. John Lynch was elected on his 9th time. So there is, Reggie's not in first place on having to wait. Edgerrin had to wait 6 or 7 years. But no, you get 20 years. And that's, we've had people get in the last several years. Well, this is his last year. If he doesn't get in, he goes into the senior pool. And that's mattered to some people. And it drives me crazy. Well, then why didn't he get in for the first 20 years,
right,
or the first 19 years? But then I vote for seniors, because if they don't get in, if Roger Craig and Kenny Anderson and L.C. Greenwood don't get in, they're probably gone.
So let me clarify this. Is this a fair statement to make? Mike Chappell would know between Adam Vinatieri and Reggie Wayne whether or not both, one or none of them, made it into the final 7, but he would not know what the results of that final 7 voting is.
Yes.
Okay.
But then I also know past the 7 who did or did not get in regarding those 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
If that makes any sense to you. I know once we paired from 10 to 7, I knew who the 7 were. And if you didn't get to the 7, you don't have a chance of getting in this year.
Right.
So, but then just from being around it and people I've talked to, I know. I know what you ask. I do know that. I just, if I share it, I would lose my job. And as much as people want me to lose that selector's job anyway, I'm not ready to do that yet.
There's a really good steakhouse in Mansfield that I enjoy. Should I make reservations for sometime in the early fall or late summer?
Yeah, we're not going to go there. Hey, what's today? Monday? You'll know Thursday night. And
that's the last thing I was going to ask is when do we find out?
It's Thursday night at the honor show, which it's another bitch. This is like a 2-hour show where you do the MVP and the player of the year and comeback player. And oh, by the way, like in the second hour, they dropped the Hall of Fame in there for 15 minutes, which is this is the Hall of Fame, for crying out loud. Don't dump us after somebody's monologue, an hour and a half into the thing. But that's another argument we try to have. But it's Thursday night. I don't know what the time is, 8 to 10 or something locally. So that's when you'll know whether you should make the drive over to Canton or just not.
Okay, lastly, chap, if I had a tradition that I like to enjoy a dish or a delicacy that is indigenous to the Super Bowl champion city, every year I do this. The day after the Super Bowl, I plan for lunch or breakfast or dinner or whatever. I'm going to have something to eat that is aligned with the Super Bowl champion from the night before. 1 week from today, will I be enjoying clam chowder or coffee?
Coffee. Don't you think? Don't you think?
But doesn't it feel like every time we think there's a slam dunk, the other one wins?
Yes. And the only thing is, though, on your Starbucks type of thing, whenever we used to go to Seattle, which was a awful trip because it's so far away, we'd stay at SeaTac Airport, and there was a place called the 11 Coins or 9 Coins or something. Great place to eat. So I would eat there. But no, I just, as much as I like clam chowder, and then Drake Mays apparently got some kind of a
shoulder, right? Yeah.
Shoulder thing. Well, he's a quarterback, so shoulder things are a big deal. I thought all year long that if the best team wasn't Seattle, it was the Rams. And I think we've shown that, and boy, Colts should have beat them. Doggone. Colts should have beat them with Phillip Rivers. But I just think Seattle, I realize you've got Sam Darnold and he can turn into a pumpkin real soon, or real quickly. That defense is pretty good. So I think this is a Seattle. But you're right. Every time you think it's that slam dunk, it's not. But if I had to bet your money, I'd be betting on Seattle.
All right, goes without saying, Eddie, that if you need to get your coffee on Monday to go along with what I'm saying, Java House is the place to do it.
That's right.
JavaHouse.com. Get the query bundle at the Fan at
there you go.
for 25% off. All right, Chap, appreciate the time and the candor as always.
I'll catch you next week, bud.
All right, Mike Chappell joining us from CBS 4 and WXIN Fox 59. We come back. A look at round ball over the weekend and what might have changed in the right direction for two local teams and one that seems to be kind of stuck. We'll explain next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, Jake, stop digging with Chap. You're going to get that man in trouble. Nah, Chap's a vet.
I also noticed that we're still doing this QR thing. Yes. I don't know who your name is, but I agree with them.
No, Eddie, that's...
Not sweeping the area.
Let me tell you right now.
You can't say the kids are doing it, Jake, when you've got people that are older than you following suit.
With their kids. They're connected with grandkids.
No.
Okay, let's put the over-under right now.
That's brainwashing.
Put the over-under right now. Number of people
brainwashing.
that will see me tonight at Gamebridge Fieldhouse and say QR.
I don't know.
QR. 5.
Okay.
If you see me tonight, I want people, if you see me tonight.
Tell them how ridiculous it is.
No, just yell out QR.
No, because then, no.
No, if people just yell at me, QR, then I know it's code. I know. Like, okay, you're with the program.
They could also yell out Morse.
Eddie, listen.
Or Da Vinci.
You're going, we're not going like, I know Morse is big because of the Stranger Things, but that's still old. Listen, there's two kinds. Have you seen the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yes. It's not your fault, Jake. You're the way that you are. It's not
in
your
the movie
fault.
Good Will Hunting,
it's not your fault.
In the bar scene, Will says to the snobby kid at Harvard, one day you're going to learn there's two certainties in life.
Hold on.
One, don't do that. And two, you dropped $150,000 on an education you could have gotten for 10 cents as a late charge at the local library. Now, Eddie, the only thing I'll say here is not that there are two certainties in life, but I will tell you this. There are two people in the world. Two. Those with the program and those that aren't. And you know when you meet somebody and you're like, that guy there is with the program. The guy, the last night, okay? The guy that when I was ordering the hat and I called the customer service line because my hat hadn't arrived and it said to text a number. And I texted that number. And then the guy got back to me and said, last night at 12 o'clock, I got a thing from him saying, I totally apologize. I've refunded your money, but unfortunately, I've had to close my online store. And I just had to close it today because I'm going through a divorce and it's been a hard day, whatever. I could tell with his sincerity, and I appreciated his vulnerability there. I'm like, this guy's with the program. Now, I've never met him, don't know him, but I could tell this guy's with the program. And then lo and behold, I'm up till 2:30 in the morning texting back and forth with this guy, just about life, because he's with the program. And he probably thought to himself with me, this guy's with the program. Two kinds of people in the world, those with the program and those that aren't. And if you're with the program, you know what program I'm talking about. And all of it is kind of code. QR. Right? So if people see me tonight and they simply yell out QR, it's replacing hello. It just means code, I'm with the program. That's all. So, for what it's worth. We have tickets to give away. Is that correct?
Yeah, John Mellencamp, yeah.
Here's how we should give away tickets to John Mellencamp. I think what we should do right now is, we were going to talk about Indiana and how, Nick Dorn is his emergence here as an outside shooter for Indiana has really changed. It's a new dynamic for Indiana that I think has allowed them a new wrinkle to their offense. And it's helped out Lamar Wilkerson, and I think it's even taken some heat off of Tucker DeVries. And that's a big part of Indiana showed a lot of resolve in that win against UCLA. And Purdue, in the way that they dominated Maryland, so much of that was Fletcher Lawyer getting back in rhythm and the sinking that allows for the Purdue offense. And maybe Braden Smith and a players-only meeting is what helped jumpstart their Fletcher Lawyer. And then you get the other aspect is Butler. And we haven't talked a lot about Butler on this show. But,
I was at that game. Ugh.
What was the crowd like?
In what regard?
They lost at home to Georgetown. If Hinkle holds, what does Hinkle hold? 14,000, 12,000?
I don't know.
How close was it to packed?
I'd say it was about 75, 80%.
See, I love Hinkle, it's pretty expensive to go to a game, admittedly. My one thing that I keep going back to, and I don't want to be this way, and I hope I'm wrong, but I just cannot go back to feeling like they should be in the A-10. I know geographically it's a weird spot for them, but so too is the Big East. But it feels like the Big East is just an animal that, I watched a lot of, over the weekend, I actually watched some A-10 basketball. I watched Duquesne and Rhode Island, Archie Miller's group. But I just think that
isn't that Duke Quincy?
It is Duquesne.
Yeah,
but I felt like the Atlantic 10 was a really good fit for Butler because it's bigger than the Horizon, and I love the Horizon League, but more money there. You get more than usually one or two teams in the tournament, but you're not having to compete at the financial level and the recruiting aspect that you do with the Big East. But I think what we could do right now, Eddie, is if you want to 239-1070. 239-1070. If you would like to see John Mellencamp, this is going to be July 18th at Ruoff. All it takes is for you to call in right now and admit why it is that you think QR is cool at 239-1070. That's it.
Well, don't call because I'm not picking it up.
No. First person that calls in right now, we're giving away the tickets. We'll put you on the air. That's all you got to do. Now, it's one thing to just have somebody say QR and think they're going to win. What we're doing here is you have to sell me on why you agree that QR is worth sweeping the city, which is what it's doing, right? Who do we have, Eddie?
Matt.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hey, what's up? How are you, man?
I'm good, Matt. You sound like a cool guy. How old a fella are you?
I'll be 40 this year.
Oh, okay. Well, happy birthday. When's your birthday?
May the 5th. Cinco de Mayo.
Are you worried about turning 40?
Nah, man. I don't think so.
You got kids?
I do. I've got a 10-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Is the 10-year-old did the 10-year-old go through the 6-7 phase where everything was 6-7?
Oh man, he hates 6-7.
Oh, perfect.
Actually, when I say 6-7, he gets kind of embarrassed. So.
Okay. Well, and maybe you can set the trend with him. What do you think of simply saying QR when you're speaking, like when you're talking to your son? I assume it's a son because you said he. So if you're talking to your son and somebody else in the family is like, "What are you guys talking about?" And then you look at him and you both just say QR, meaning you're speaking in code. Now he's going to think that's cool, right?
Yeah, probably. I think we can make that work.
Yeah, see? Okay, so can you just, if you could, Matt, could you just give me your best QR?
Hey, the QR.
It's okay. Matt, would you like to go see John Mellencamp?
Yeah, man, for sure.
Will you do this? When you're at the Mellencamp show, if anybody says, "Hey, how'd you get tickets?" You simply have to say QR, and then they'll know exactly what you're talking about, right?
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Matt's on board. All right, Matt, we're sending you on your way July 18th at Ruoff. Congratulations. And happy
awesome.
40th, by the way. You'll be 40 when it takes place.
Man.
All right, see? Eddie, it's as simple as that. We also have tickets to give away. And this is always super fun, to be honest with you. It is a cool event, and it's really pretty spectacular, some of the stuff that you can see when you walk around to enjoy it. And I'm talking about the upcoming Suburban Indie Home Show. All you have to do, text the word HOME, HOME, if you would like to go to the Suburban Indie Home Show, which is February 6th through the 8th at Grand Park. So coming up, obviously, this coming weekend, February 6th through the 8th, Grand Park. 4-pack tickets for the Suburban Indie Home Show. Simply text the word HOME, HOMP, to register. You go right into the drawing at 239-1070. If you're sitting on your cell phone right now, 239-1070, text the word HOME. If you are later going to be near your phone, text at 239-1070 the word HOME. If you are sitting there and you're saying, "I'd like for Query to know that I support the show, I just don't want to use the QR," then no problem. Text the word HOME to 239-1070, and you will be registered to win a 4-pack of tickets to the Suburban Indie Home Show at Grand Park coming up this weekend. J&B's in the building. We'll find out what he's got lined up. We'll do it as part of the crossover next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, Bruce Kidd oversees Concerts for a Cause, which is an annual event that puts on music shows that benefits a number of different charities around town. He was kind enough in that capacity to help me out this past winter with donations both to Firefly and to the women's and children's shelter of the Wheeler Mission. And he's around musicians all the time. So you can imagine being in the field of entertainment and music, knows a little bit about what's hip. Hey, Jake, QR is genius. That from Bruce. Mm-hmm. See, if you see me at the game tonight, you too want to be a genius, just simply, that's the shout out. QR. Eddie, every time I do that, you end up biting your lip.
It's just so stupid.
It's not.
So stupid.
Okay, well. You can say that, but, one of these days the day's going to come where you're going to miss me and you're going to say to yourself, what I wouldn't give for just one QR rant.
No. No.
Okay.
No.
Don't believe me.
That's in the same barrel as the British accent.
Oh, which is fabulous. And kids love that.
Yeah.
Now, which British accent? The confused older man or the lively tea drinker?
Either one, they're both bad.
They're great. People love that. I'll go through the car wash.
Leprechaun, oh, it's okay.
Oh, it's beyond okay. Hot. We're just a couple of months away from the St. Patrick's Day.
I know.
The darn groundhog can have his day today, but soon it'll be mine. Yeah, see? People love that. The only thing they love more than me narrating car parking efforts out in the parking lot.
You know what's going to be great?
What's that?
Is 2 weeks from today, we don't have a show.
Really?
Yes. No show.
3-day weekend?
Yeah.
Woohoo! 3-day weekend.
That means no President's Day trivia from you all day long.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Glorious.
Do you know how much I love the President's Day trivia? I love presidential trivia.
I know you do.
Love it. For example, my favorite trivia question of all time. Who are the only two men to have served as president of the United States, but at no point in their life run on a major ticket as a presidential candidate? I asked that one, stumped the panel forever, right? It's one of my favorite trivia questions of all time. It's a great trivia question. I mean, you get your presidential, those of us that are in the presidential trivia business, we know that Taft got stuck in the bathtub. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows that. We know that Buchanan's the only bachelor. Everybody knows that. That Grant's buried in Grant's tomb along with his wife. I mean, run-of-the-mill stuff. But you start getting into that. Who are the only two men to have served as president of the United States and at no point in their life run as the presidential candidate on a major ticket in a presidential election? You ask people that and then just sit. You can actually then afterwards see the medulla oblongata start to slide down their ear canal.
Medulla oblongata.
Starts to slide down their ear canal because the brain just starts melting.
Jake, I don't know if you know this or not. That is not why alligators are so ornery. It's because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush.
Okay. See, now you're on to my appeal joke from earlier, right?
What are you talking about? Do you know what the reference is from, Jake?
What's that?
Do you not know what I just referenced?
Yes.
Okay.
That's from that alligator from who's the alligator that bit off the arm of the guy?
I don't know, but the reference I made was from The Water Boy.
No, I know. And the other Sandler movie though. Happy Gilmore.
Oh, that one, yeah.
You got the gator in that one as well. JMB has arrived. He's wearing a Quebec Nordiques baseball jersey.
Who are they now? Do you know in the NHL?
Colorado Avalanche?
They are. You know what Nordique means?
I would guess that means something French for northerner would be my guess.
Northern Europe.
Okay.
Kind of Northern Europe. Those that are native to
logo.
Northern Europe. It is a great logo. Blake, my son, actually has the hockey jersey. Oh, man.
I was like, it was probably 3 years ago before I realized that the Hartford Whalers logo actually has an H and a W in it.
It does. It's cool as hell, though.
It's
Isn't
great.
it? Absolutely cool as hell. Did you guys watch the Stadium Series in Tampa? Anybody?
No,
yesterday?
it was 40 degrees, right?
40 degrees.
They at
in
least
Tampa.
ended up getting like some form of cold weather, which is good.
They had a goalie fight
Oh, nice.
in that.
Don't see
too.
those
I
enough.
mean, it was a chippy. I don't know.
You've gotten all into hockey lately.
I was just watching it because I was bouncing back and forth between that and I think the Knicks and the Lakers a little bit. But yeah, I kind of like it a little bit.
Who's your hockey team?
Well, Blake likes the Canadians, so we probably end up watching more of the Canadians.
Okay.
With Cole Caulfield. I don't really know who the hell I'm watching half the time or who I'm talking about. And I knew it, back in 1994 because we played NHL 94 so much. You got to know, everybody. I had the Blackhawks all the time, so I had, Steve Larmer and
I've always said
Ronick and
Pavel Bure, wasn't he in NHL 94?
Phil Housley.
Eddie, do you know if Quebec, the Nordiques, they were actually going to go with Red Hawks? You know what their initials would have been if they did that? It'd be QR. I always thought, John, the NHL 94 allowed for such a breakthrough of popularity of the NHL, and then they went on a lockout, and it just killed them because everybody was so excited to get to know it based off of that video game. But
I loved NHL 94. We played that nonstop.
that and Bill Walsh College Football 94 was also awesome. What's lined up on the big program today?
Brackets is on here. Joe Lenardi's going to join us to the 4 o'clock hour, way early. Look at who's in, who's out, and all that crap. And the Ignite, Emma Halter. Emma is from Roncalli. She is the libero for the Indy Ignite. And they're good so far this year. But Emma Halter from Roncalli.
I like going to
also
their
on the
games.
show.
They
They are fun to watch, and I especially like it when they have a local connection. And they've had an interesting local connection the last 2 years. So pretty cool.
All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to Query & Company.